Today's April the 2nd and it feels like spring. The sun is shining, the sky is blue and the birds are twittering. So this is a great start to the week, which also starts with a day off from work, because this is the second Easter day, I think it's called in English. So basically yesterday I finished 2 books, so that was a great start to the month. One book was a 4-star read, the other book was a 2-star read. But let's start on a positive note. The 4-star read is this one, What a Carve Up by Jonathan Coe. This was so crazy but so wonderful as well. It's a combination of a satire, a horror story. It's kind of plagiated from a horror movie, so that What a Carve Up is actually an old horror movie, and then the story is parallel to that movie. It's about this dysfunctional family whose members are crazy and greedy, and we zoom in on these members and how they are destroying the world basically. And then their story is framed within another story about Michael, who is a writer writing the biography of this family. So it's a lot of things, this book, but it's a book that taught me to be patient, because some passages were a little bit long, but in the end they were so rewarding. So I liked it a lot, and as I said, I gave it 4 stars. And then the 2-star book I read was actually this one. Maybe you remember that I read this in February, or at least half of it, and then I decided to give up on it. But then recently I wanted to read it anyway, and I finished it. And then the ending was so disappointing that even though I had meant to give it 3 stars, the ending was so unbelievable that I was frustrated just before going to bed last night, and I decided to give it 2 stars after all. So yeah, you can look up the synopsis on Goodreads. I've already been rambling on for too long. Now I need to go work out and then relax and read for the rest of the day. Really enjoy this Monday off from work. I have here my last batch of books that I'm going to receive in this gigantic book haul that I have had in the previous weeks. So let's start with the small one. So this book is so interesting. This is another non-fiction book by Jeanette Walls, who also wrote The Glass Castle. I'm really curious to read this one. And the bookmark was a new one, so that's exciting. The big one. Okay, so you get the first peek. You can't really see anything, but so many books. The bookmark looks like this. Let's start from the beginning. We have this one, another non-fiction. I believe most of these are non-fiction actually. And then we have Spinster. I have been curious about this book for years now, it seems. This one as well. I will have filmed a book haul, my second part of the book haul, this month. So it will already be up, and I will put a link to it down below. And in that one I will explain the books much further. So this is basically just a sneak peek. Then we have this one, which doesn't have the cover I was expecting. I ordered the blue pretty one. I didn't order a small mass paperback one, but I guess this will have to do. Also this one, which will take me back to Gilmore Girls. A lot of exciting new books to dive into in the upcoming months. This is so exciting. Today is a glorious sunny Sunday. Take a look. I don't know if you can even see it, but the sun is shining, the sky is bright, and it's supposed to be pretty hot today, which makes me so happy. I have been reading and finishing Wild by Cheryl Strayed, which was the first book I picked from my spring TBR. And it was funny how the weather changed here in Denmark while I was reading this book, because this is basically about Cheryl's hiking from the southern California to Oregon. The trail is called the Pacific Crest Trail, and on her hike she goes through different kinds of weather. She goes through the desert where it's very hot, she goes through the snow, through the autumnal weather of storms and rain, etc. And while I was reading this, it was snowing in Denmark, and now it's spring weather. which was kind of a funny experience. I gave this book 4 stars. It was very insightful. It gave me what I wanted about hiking for several miles all alone, what it's like. And yeah, so 4 stars. There were some bits and pieces of it that didn't really agree with me, but I think I'm going to write about those in my Goodreads review. So if you want to know about that, go check that out. Hopefully I will have written it by the time you watch this. Later today I have my parents coming over for dinner, and afterwards we're going to the cinema to watch The Post. Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. I know it's going to be so good, so let's keep our fingers crossed. But before they arrive, I thought that I would maybe film the second part of my spring book haul, since it is very spring-like right now. So I'm in the mood for that. I just have to go collect all of the books and then get started. And Zeus is over there. Can you see him? So yeah, he's ready as well. I have already selected my next read from my spring TBR. I thought I would show you. I might just pick up this book as my next read. It's the same day, just a few hours later, and I managed to also finish the second book I was reading, and that is Sugar Money by Jane Harris. So I finished this in the garden, out in the sun, and it was so great to be outside again. However, this story is very heavy. It's based on history in Martinique. It's based on so many things that I won't go into right now, but definitely read the synopsis on Goodreads so that you know what it's actually about. I liked how Jane rephrased history so that we get a story about 2 brothers and some kind of an adventure they have to go on. One of the brothers is 28 years old, the other brother is only about 14, and the younger one sees this as an adventure, but the older one knows that this is really dangerous work that they are put upon. So it's about that journey, and it's set in Martinique, which was refreshing to read about. And I liked how the language in this one plays a big part. The language is very vivid in its own way. So yeah, I think my rating will be somewhere around 3.5, 4 stars. So I have finished a book. I literally just finished it, and I knew I had to get me some coffee. The book is this one, When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi, and it's one of those books that definitely is very thought-provoking. It is a non-fiction book about this surgeon who is diagnosed with cancer, and while writing this book he actually died. So his wife had to finish the account, and it was very sad, it was very thought-provoking. It makes you think of mortality and how we choose to live our lives, especially when we know that we are going to die very soon. But I think what I liked about it the most is the fact that it was written by a surgeon who is normally on one side of the table, and then now he is on the other side of the table. And also I was surprised to find that half of this book is actually an account of his childhood. So we really get to know him as a person, and I loved that because I'm just a very character-driven person. I like to know about the people I read about. So he gave me that, and it was just very sad. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. But I feel such a void inside of me now. It's not a very happy book, but it's important, definitely. And as I was saying, I just need a cup of coffee now. And I just finished reading a book. I feel so relaxed right now, so I'm pretty sleepy. But anyway, I just finished reading a book which I find very peculiar, very interesting. I'm talking about this one, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. I've heard immensely good things about it. It's a modern classic, and I give it 4 stars because it is a beautiful story. It's very beautiful writing, and I love how it's set in America in the 1900s. But the story or the plot in itself felt a little bit too convenient in some places. That's the only fault I found with it, but I really did like it. It's about Mr. Singer, and it's about 4 people who are naturally drawn to him, and these 4 people find themselves on different stages in their lives. So it's very interesting to read about these characters. They were the most interesting in the book, I think. And yeah, just a really good read, which I do recommend. But it was pretty peculiar also in some ways. I have decided to put back The 12 by Justin Cronin on my shelves, this book, which I'm halfway through, but I'm really not in the mood for it these days. So I am saving it for autumn or winter, which I know is half a year away. I just can't handle this depressing story right now, which is really good, but some passages are not that great, and I'm in the middle of one of those right now. So that's what's happening. Hi, Zeus. Can I have this? Ugh. Zeus? Oh! I have finished my reread of Lolita, and it was incredible. The reread made all the difference, and I just really love this book. It's incredible. So I gave it 5 stars this time around. It's yet another Friday morning. I have my hands full of my book and my coffee mug. The book I just finished, and the coffee I am about to make. So actually, let me just go make that before I talk to you. This is actually my second cup of coffee this morning. It's only 7:30 a.m. and I don't know. I just finished this book, Mohawk by Richard Russo, and I love Richard Russo because he writes great everyday stories set in America and about these characters that seem so ordinary, but then something big happens. With this book, it was just okay. It wasn't one of my favorites of his, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. Mohawk is not a reference to the hairstyle. It is the name of the town that everyone lives in. And then it's about how people live there. It's about the grill bar, it's about the hospital and the school. And it's just a fun read to begin with, but then it gets serious. And that's where I didn't really see why things were going the way they were going. So that's all I had to say. I gave this book 3 stars in case I haven't mentioned it already. And now I think my coffee is ready to be drunk. Now, people have been asking me how I choose my next read, and people have been telling me that they like seeing me scan my shelves and pick my next read. The thing about me is that I'm a very moody reader, meaning that while reading a book, I already know what books I want to pick up next. But that might change, or that will change very quickly, so that if you ask me a week later, the books that I want to read will be totally different. So what I'm trying to say is that while I was reading Mohawk, I had 2 books in mind that I really want to read, and I think I'm going to pick up, actually I have 3 books in mind. Let me just show them to you. I kind of want to read a book out of season. I want to read Carrie by Stephen King, and I was expecting to save this for October, but I'm really in the mood for it today for some reason, so I might pick up that one. But I have also been in the mood for non-fiction these past couple of days, and I have 2 books which have been on my mind. First, we have this one, Everyday Sexism, about how women encounter sexism in everyday life. And then I also kind of want to read this one. So the choice is between the 3 of them, I think. I'm just going to stand here and consider for a little bit, and then I will pick up a book. I always do, but the thing is what book. But now at least you got some kind of an idea of how I choose my next read. So cheers to that. Hazelnut. Look at this beautiful tree. I love it. And here's Zeus. Hi, Zeus. So I'm about to write my review of this book. You can't even see it. Maybe you can guess it. I'm about to write my review of this book, which I just finished, and it went by way too fast. I started it yesterday and finished it now, and I've also read another book in between, but nevertheless, I was so happy that I loved this. I mean, it was really entertaining, and it provided me with what I wanted about Lauren Graham and Gilmore Girls and everything else. And this ending, this new bonus chapter, was good. Like, the last page of that almost teared me up. So I was happy, very delighted, and actually that last page makes me want to bump up my original rating of 4 stars to maybe 4.5. This is not really working. I just got home from the movies with my mother, and we went to watch Midnight Sun. And holy guacamole, that movie had me so moved by the end. That movie had my mother so moved by the end. So we both loved it, absolutely loved it. It took me so much by surprise, and now I can't stop thinking about it. I definitely recommend it. And also, I've got some candy left over. It's Monday night and it's been a long day, but I did manage to finish this creepy novel, Carrie by Stephen King. I watched the movie when I was younger, and I'd never read the book, so now was the time, and it was good. It was really creepy. If you don't know, Carrie is about Carrie, who is unfortunately being bullied very severely, and then what happens to her on prom night pushes her over the edge. But the difference between Carrie and everyone else who is unfortunately bullied is that Carrie is telekinetic, so disaster ensues. I loved how Stephen King paces this book with different accounts, different perspectives. We have some excerpts from articles, some testimonies, and it worked so well. I will say that the focus on the prom night was a bit too heavy in my eyes, a bit too long, but other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed it, as much as you can enjoy a scary novel. And I kind of want to rewatch the movie now and compare it to the book. But for now, I did give this book 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, I know this is silly, but I adore these napkins. So tasty. But anyway, let's just get back to the book I am actually trying to, or I'm supposed to talk about. I finished this one this morning in bed, and this is so funny because this is another, well, by the way, this is Idaho by Emily Roskovich. It is her debut novel, and I need to take a breath. I just had my breakfast and I'm still digesting, and I'm still waking up, so I'm not talking properly. But this book is funny because it's one of those books that I intended on unhauling some weeks ago, because for some reason I'd heard that this would be about birds and some people going on a trip to observe birds. And it was still fiction, but I bought it some years ago. I never got to it, and I just didn't feel like it. I just didn't feel like reading about birds. But eventually I decided to pick it up, and it's not at all about birds, not at all. I don't know where I got that idea from. It's about a woman who accidentally kills her own child. And it's also about her husband and her husband's new wife. It's about the children. This book jumps back and forth in time, and it was phenomenal. Another one of my favorite reads of this year so far. Needless to say, I gave it 5 stars. The writing was impeccable, the characters, the symbolism, I just truly adored it. So it's another one of those books that took me by surprise, and that I'm so happy that I didn't end up unhauling. Now I can get back to my digestion and not being able to talk. Maybe I shouldn't be talking this early in the day, even though it is past 8 o'clock in the morning. But it's raining, maybe that's why. I also just reached 14,000 subscribers. Holy crap, I'm heading out, but I don't think I'm going to finish any more books in April, which is perfectly fine. I am ending this reading vlog a little bit early, a few days early, but nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back with my May reading vlog. So until then, have a great time reading, have a great day, and happy reading.